Well, welcome into a very exciting episode of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is theater mogul from the Paduti Theater outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Jeff Revilla. Jeff, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. I did make him say theater mogul. That one's on me. You can decide by the end of the show if I've earned that title or not.
Well, why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about the theater and yourself, and we'll make a judgment right away.
I had this idea that, what if I could compete against Madison Square Garden or, some giant outdoor venue, but only have 40 seats in my theater. So, you know, ironically, I have the same capacity because we built a place for podcasters to come in, take the stage. They can perform in front of an audience of 40 people, but also live stream that to infinite seats. So technically, my little tiny baby theater has more seats than Madison Square Garden.
Amazing concept, man. And that's exactly what drew me to you when I kind of saw the Paduti. And I actually think that I saw it from someone else before I was kind of introduced to you and found out what you were doing. But just fantastic idea. Obviously, we're podcasters here. We just won a big award for Content Creator of the Year from our Midwest Country Music Organization, kind of supporting our community of artists. What you have is kind of a missing link, right? Where a central location to go. So one that we do, we call the Songwriter Showcase. And we go just take over a venue. We bring our cameras, we set up, and we shoot it all live inside of the venue. Well, as you know, most venues aren't really set up for that. So you're kind of left wanting a little bit, right? So to have a studio and people that are watching can see the theater behind you on your green screen, just a beautiful space, man. It's awesome. It's just amazing. And I'm so in love with not just the concept, but your diligence in making it happen. It's no small feat to build a space like this and then to just stick with it.
Yeah, one of the things that drew me to doing this business model was, I love doing live events. I love getting in front of people. I love being a ham. I love making people laugh, even make people throw things at me. It's so much fun, and I enjoy the chaos and the being in the moment. And when I started thinking about how do I take I did this little trivia show. It now airs on local television, but I was like, how do I take this to the people? How could I possibly do that? If you go to a hotel and say, hey, I want to rent out a ballroom, you're like, that's thousands of dollars by the time you
Minimum.
add in
Yeah,
AV equipment.
$1,000 minimum off the bat.
Minimum, just to sign the contract. Then you need AV, you need hospitality services, you need catering services, and it's a $10,000 investment. Most podcasters almost never make $10,000. So right off the bat, if you wanted to host an event, even a festival, that's still cost prohibitive to go somewhere, rent a space, and try to do your own event. It's really hard to do that. But with this model, we're talking about this middle ground between where I'm at right now in my home studio and you're in your home studio. And I was joking about Madison Square Garden. But if you think about it, there is nothing in between for podcasters from their home studio to selling out in arenas. And we know that arenas and theaters are becoming a place where podcasts are starting to sell those tickets. They're starting to fill up those places. But what's that bridge for us to get from home studio to theaters? There's no one developing that middle talent. I think places like this will become that middle ground.
Well, and the only one that I can think of is the mothership in Austin, right? Joe Rogan's place, but that's only because Kill Tony and Tony Hinchcliffe has been doing his thing for so long, right? Doing it in the original room at the Comedy Store, right? Exactly what you've done. Hey, we got this beautiful stage. We're just going to do our thing. And what most podcasters I think forget is that like consistency is tough. And how consistent can you be when you're trying to build this huge idea without your own space? So you cut that out, you made your own space. It looks freaking amazing, man. My only regret is that I live 1,500 miles away, right? And I can't just be there every single week doing our show and doing some of these other things that we have going on. So what's been some of the challenges that you faced? I mean, I'm sure that list is long, but give us like the top three, top five, challenges that you've had, not just in podcasting yourself, but in, building this theater and getting this model up off the ground.
Yeah, I thought about this idea for about 7 years before I finally pulled the trigger and went in on it. And I've been doing virtual events, Indie Pods United, Women of Indie Pods, some autism summits with Sarah. And these things were easy for me to fill up. I could say, hey, I'm going to do a festival. I'd have 30 podcasters in 3 days sign up. It was easy to find talent when you pull talent from anywhere in the world. But when I launched this, I thought it'd be the same way. People are thinking about this like I am, and it turns out I might have been a little bit ahead of the curve, a little bit ahead of the market. And while I've been thinking about it, no one else has. So it took me about a year. Like now, my Saturdays are booked out for 2, 3 months. I'm starting to fill in Fridays. I'm starting to get the volume. So finding the local talent is way harder than you think it is. It's, podcasting such a digital medium. We exist in a virtual space. You and I connected. We never would have crossed paths if it wasn't for the internet. So it's
built
easier.
everything around me.
Yeah.
Like, the money's not come yet, but today we just crested 45,000 views on our YouTube channel, and we've really only been going hard on our YouTube since January. So it was kind of this slow burn, right? Building up the views. Most of your shorts are getting like 12 views. Well, now we're consistently getting 1,200 views, right? And we went from 20 to 45 in about 10 days. And it's like, oh, once you're consistent with this content rolling out, that it starts to take off very quickly. But like you just mentioned, while in the digital space, we're like, oh my God, there's so many podcasters. In the real world, they are not anywhere close to you.
Yeah.
We spoke off camera. I live in South Dakota. My fans know I'm in the middle of nowhere, man. There's no other podcasters within 2 hours of me. Right. And if they are, they're not attacking it in the way that I am. So I think there's maybe a handful of podcasts in the entire state of South Dakota, and even fewer that are as niched into supporting a music community like I am. Right. So it's very hard out there to find that. We have a content house, I guess I would call it, a podcast studio my friend Caleb Hoover has in Sioux Falls. A beautiful space. He's got all the pro cameras and doing all of it, but he's running into the same thing. So kind of the mission for me, I've said, is to start 1 million podcasters.
Yeah.
A year ago, I didn't even have a podcast, Jeff. Yeah. So I kind of started serving a community and went, oh, this is kind of what it's about. If you have the right personality and you have, the community that needs to be served, you can make this go a lot faster than just coming out and going, well, I'm going to do my thing and I'm just going to be about me. Instead, you be about the community. And that's what I love about your theater, is it was about serving a need for a community of podcasters, even if that community didn't exist yet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the crazy part, because I've met a lot of podcasters in Pittsburgh, but the podcasters who are ready to take that leap from the safetiness of their home studio. I know I can come home from work, you and I can connect, I can turn on my computer, and I'm going to have pretty good audio right out of the gate. It's safe. It's a controlled environment. I'm used to that. But when you get somebody out of that environment, like, okay, let's take this show on the road. Let's put this on a stage in front of people. That's a whole different game. And it's something that I really believe, if you look at just the data and the numbers and the evolution of other genres like comedy, like music, they started in small clubs, the back of bowling alleys, the Chinese restaurants would have shows, before there were venues, and then there became venues. And then those venues opened up for bigger theaters, and those acts needed opening acts. So then they started to bring in more people. So, a one night show could have been 3 or 4 bands or 3 or 4 comedians. And if you tell me that podcasting is not on that same exact trajectory, you're not seeing the data the last 10 years.
Thank you.
You're 100% heading towards. This is a form.
This industry is headed for a massive explosion, and I feel bad for the guys that have been in it for 10 years that are so jaded, right? I deal with a lot of them. I'm in some pretty large Facebook groups, and, the podcast, Joe Rogan was the bubble, and nobody's ever going to make any money podcasting. And I was like, you are out of touch, man. Yeah. You are really out of touch with what this is, because mainstream media is gone. It's gone. And with that, all of that advertising space and those advertising dollars that they were sucking up, right? So with all of that now gone, there's now not anyone is going to fill one of those slices, right? Where you had three major networks gobbling up 80% of the take. Well, now they're the 20%. And now this 60% that was completely controlled by three things is now in the hands of guys like us, right? Where we're trying to figure out, how do we get that support? How do we connect with these companies to bring them into what we're doing and to show them what we've done? And unfortunately, it takes, or fortunately for us, it takes guys with just these wild ideas to step out and to just do it and to say, hey, I'm willing to make that investment up front to build all these things, to build the community, to build the theater, to do all the things so that when the money does come knocking, I'm already prepared. I'm not like, oh, well, I can build that for you and then having to go through the trials and tribulations. We're doing all of that and then ready to deliver a product at the end of the day.
Yeah, you were mentioning, ad revenue. Where's this ad revenue coming from? And I love the quote. Libsyn and Buzzsprout, they do these reports about how many average downloads does the average podcast get. And I always feel like this starts out as I'm being kind of a very negative, a little bit of a downer, but 95% of podcasts don't get more than 1,100 downloads in the first 7 days. So we built this model of podcasting on these host read ads. So a good way to sell ads is a CPM, a cost per thousand. So for every 1,000 downloads, you can get about $25 per 1,000 downloads. And if 95% of the podcasts aren't getting 1,000 downloads, the best they can hope for is a $20 ad on an ad read. And so I started thinking, like, well, how does this equate to business? That $20 per 1,000 is 2 cents per download. So the value of somebody downloading your show is 2 cents. Now, hear me out. So it took you 1,000 downloads to make $20. If you were to do a live show, let's say you got 5 people show up, you sold $10 tickets. With my business model, we split the door 50-50. You walk away with $25, right? 5 people is as much as 1,000 downloads. The value of a live audience, the value of being in front of people is 250 times greater than the digital download. So I say, think about it in the terms of a car. If you have a 1994 Ford Escort and a brand new Lamborghini, those are 2 different vehicles. They both get you to the same place, but one has a significantly more value, right? And that's what you get when you start thinking about podcasting, not just as a digital medium, but as an entertainment, as an act, as something you can take on the road. It's something you can perform for people. The value of being in front of people is exponentially greater than hoping somebody downloads something and you get to look at your numbers in a week.
Exactly, Jeff. And I'm a musician. I've been playing live for 25 years, right? Like, I have been in that world of performing live and getting paid very well to do it,
Yeah.
right? And then understanding that, like, I'm not putting any money into streaming. I don't pay DistroKid or any, things like that to get my music out there. I use a service called 1RPM. It's free. So a little free game for y'all out there in the music world. You don't have to pay to get your stuff out to these big places, right? Like, stop giving other people your money into a model that is never going to pay you back. Never going to pay you back. Even if you make it to where most of us would feel they're not even getting paid. But the Spotify builds the clout for them to go out and book gigs. I just bypassed that. I said, I'll get my clout from somewhere else. Yeah. I'll get my authority from somewhere else other than Spotify in this totally rigged game. And I will go out and build my own thing. And that's exactly what we've done. And it's exactly what you've done. So what we are building now is taking this out on the road, right? I have a 10-day tour planned. Now, being around the music industry with the podcast and everything as well, it's easy for us to book shows at venues and to build that. But a lot of what we're trying to do is to bring this podcast world out to other people and let them see it, especially out here in the Midwest, where most people don't know what a podcast is and are still new to the media and the medium as itself, but then what it can look like. It doesn't have to be in a studio that looks like Joe Rogan's. That is not the only thing that these podcasts can be. They can look like a songwriters round in your local venue where you are supporting 7-8 songwriters, and then not only are you sharing that, but you're able to put that out in these digital spaces and have their message carried there as well. And that's really what we're bringing to the table with our programming.
I know. Would you rather have 1 million Spotify downloads or play in front of 100 people and have a chance of that ticket revenue? You probably make more money playing in front of 100 people than you would relying on a royalty check from Spotify for 1 million downloads, right? Uh, it's just crazy that we like you said, we give away all this power, we give away our rights when we get into these platforms and these third parties. And one thing you can do, I use the Doug Benson model in this case. Is Doug Benson does a podcast called Doug Loves Movies. He goes in he does a comedy. He's a comedian. He goes around, plays clubs, but he says, hey, when I'm in Pittsburgh one day on Saturday at 4 o'clock, 4:20, because he likes to enjoy a little extracurricular activity at 4:20, he does his podcast at the comedy club. So not is he not only selling a 7 o'clock, a 9 o'clock, and maybe an 11 o'clock show, but now he's added a fourth show where he's doing his podcast, which is something you could even do, like a meet and greet with the bands, like a VIP ticket for, come see the bands. We start at 7, but at 4:30, we're going to do a meet and greet podcast where you come in, we're going to interview the bands. You can ask them the questions that you've been dying to ask them, what road life is like and touring. And, you get that extra experience that you don't get just downloading, listening to music. You get to see their faces and see how they react and see if they throw drumsticks at you or something. Like, all that chaos comes from being one-on-one in person, and you build a much better relationship by being in the same room with the artist.
Thank you, Jeff. That is going in my show now.
You should do that's Doug Benson, the Doug Benson model.
Yeah, well, it's genius, man, and I love the energy that you have for this too, and you have the right demeanor that you're going to succeed, right? But it hasn't always been that way. Can you touch on maybe some of those darker moments when you were like, "What the hell am I doing?"
Yeah, I mean, I grew up skateboarding and punk rock in the 80s and 90s.
Oh, you're used to this.
Yeah, so like DIY and poor is in my vocabulary, right? So, there were times, like, even still, I may just do a silly show or experiment with something and try something. I might be the only one in the theater. I just lock the front door, and sadly, I go do the show on my own. That's just part of the growing. And because one of the things you said, where have I been failing at? Not only at trying to find the podcasters to fill the space and develop talent for the stage, I'm also trying to teach the public this is a new form of entertainment. So I'm battling, like, hey, just like you go out to the comedy club, just like you go to the bar or a venue to see a music act, this is something you can do now on a Friday night. This is a new form of entertainment that's completely different than anything you've ever experienced. And you will walk away with a whole new perspective of what you can do on a Friday night. It's incredible. For like $5, $10, come in, see a podcast. They perform a whole 90-minute show live for you. You're like, that was a pretty good time. We're right next door to a bar. Hop over, get a drink and some fried mushrooms, and call it a night. It's a good time. And that development of not only the talent for the stage, but the talent or the public's interest, those are things I've been battling. And really until like November, December last year. I also mentioned we just opened in June. We haven't even celebrated a year yet. So we're still really, really new at this.
Yeah, well, and it's a big ask, and it's a lot for one man to kind of do all of the things. That's why we built the Midwest Podcasting Network, and building the community of podcasters, because I kind of fell into this a year ago, and really just in the last maybe 4 or 5 months where I was like, okay, you're a podcaster, right? Like, this is what you do now. You used to be a musician, but this is what you do. Well, and it's not just that, really. I mean, I love executive producing, right? All of these shows, chasing down these ideas. We got a golf show. I have 4 different networks, Jeff. I'm running, Get Better Together project, which is more like mental health and, sharing our shit a little bit. And then we have the Patriot Broadcasting Network, because I want to talk about politics and news and things that matter to me and share stories in that realm. But then we have the Scene Project, which is our more arts and culture and podcasters and all of these different things working together. I just started a sports network, the Scene Project Sports Network, because I love sports. Well, now that's giving me the opportunity to go down to some of these golf courses, right? Yeah. And hey, we'll shoot a promotional video for you. Let us hit 9. We'll do a little promo video. We'll come in, grab an interview with you, and to put your golf course out there is a really good light. Well, that's a pretty good moneymaker, right? Yeah. If you're able to come in and at, a fraction of the cost of what a video, media company would charge them to shoot a commercial, we can go, hey, we're going to give you all this, and then we're going to put it out on our network and share it, and we'll give you the footage for you to use for whatever you want to do as well. And I think we're stumbling into that, not just on golf courses, but at breweries, right? And all these different things. And it's really just having a business mind and understanding what you are. If a podcast can be a commercial for all of these places that are trying to do lead gens, right? Which is that's the big side of where the money is in podcasting right now for coaches and consultants and different things like that. Well, why can't it be there for the entertainment and promotional value as well? And the answer is, oh, it is. There's just nobody out there selling it, or not enough people out there selling it to where the market is saturated.
Yeah, now that you have sports, don't forget to ask for press passes, because you can start to get into a lot of events for free.
Already there, brother. I am trying to get into. We're big Minnesota Vikings fans here. South Dakota doesn't have its own professional sports teams, but yeah, working all the angles. We got in to cover the Cinch playoffs, which is a big rodeo at the Denny Sanford Premier Center, which is the biggest venue in South Dakota, right? So that was last fall. We didn't even know what the hell we were doing. They just didn't have anyone else that was really interested in covering the event. Well, that's one of their biggest deals of the year, right? The Governor's Cup. It's a big freaking deal. And the local news shows up 15 minutes late for the press conference, throws up their camera, tapes 2 minutes, and then walks away. And that's all the coverage they get. So I went, oh, we're here for you, right? Yeah. We're here. But not only in South Dakota is that, but all of these little Midwest markets, right? Like there is an opening for people to just dive in and do this. And I can't do them all, right? Yeah. So starting a million podcasters, that's exactly why I was like, look, you could be the guy for this or the gal for this, and really hone into that community, and you could build yourself a nice career out of it. So now the goal becomes, well, how do we find the personalities that are comfortable getting in front of the camera and comfortable doing a little bit of these things, and how do we empower them to get out there and do it on their own and not have to go through the 7 years of thinking about it or the tens of thousands of dollars invested to just pull on the thread to figure out who and what you are.
Yeah, finding the people. I mean, that's like the great unknown. It's you meet people all day, every day, but meeting people who do what you do and do it in front of people, and that it's really a challenge. And I think it takes momentum to open up those doors. Like what I noticed is I started doing these Pittsburgh podcast meetups every third Saturday of the month. I buy pizza and drinks, and I've been attracting like 20 people per night. I get about 80 to register, and you do Facebook. You ever do Facebook events? 4 times as many people sign up than show up, but that's pretty standard across the board.
If you're running 25% on that, you're doing pretty well. Yeah. I would say those are good numbers. I put like a 10% on or less on like flyers I hand out, right? If I print 100 flyers, I might get 10 people to show up for that event, right?
Yeah. So getting I'm building these local lists of local podcasters, and I'm connecting with them, and my goal is, like you said, for lead gen, I'm getting 20 people in the theater. My goal was to get 10% of them to book to do a night on the stage. So have been hitting that. I've been getting like 2 to 3 people from these events come back, and they do a show later on. So the pizza investment is paying off. It's paying dividends. Yeah, feed a Pittsburgher. They'll podcast for a life.
Is that what the Pittsburghers? That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Just give them a sandwich and put French fries on it, and they'll be happy. Right.
Oh, Jeff, I feel like we could talk for hours about all this stuff, and I have a feeling that we probably will in the future. We like to usually wrap these episodes up around this time, and just to give people a little taste of what's to come. Go ahead and plug everything, and then I'm going to chat with you off camera for a few minutes too.
Yeah, if you're just thinking about live podcasting, you may not have something like this in your neighborhood. That's okay. There's tons of places to start. Your local library often has media rooms. Coffee shops are kind of empty at 3:00 on a Saturday. There's places to go and do live podcasting. Get started, do it somewhere, and start to build up that base. And if you have questions, reach out to me. I'm Jeff. I'm at Poduty, Poduty.com, PODUTY.com. You can take a look at all of our upcoming events. About 70% of the events are live streamed as well. So you can watch them from anywhere in the world. Poduty.com, PODUTY.com, dates and deets at Poduty.com.
Jeff Revilla, thanks for being part of the scene, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.